I've got a decade of construction experience written on this piece of paper, so I'm going to give you 10 pieces of wisdom about working on your house. Now, before I started working on houses as a home remodeling contractor, I was a civil engineer working in civil infrastructure, 100,000 person company. But you know what? You work hard, you get paid the same. You're lazy, you get paid the same. You call in sick, you literally get paid the same. So I quit my job to work for myself because back then I thought that life could be a function of your effort. And I learned the hard way that's certainly not true. But life can be a function of your choices. So in this video, I'm going to help you make wise choices. Now, all the places that I've worked, rule number one seems to be the same. Always simple, never easy. And the reason that's important, when someone says easy, that's a red flag. Don't just take my word for it. Have them do the thing they said was easy a few more times. And when they circle back to you, see if they're still using that word. Probably not, because of rule number two. Always expect a surprise. I mean, how many surprises do you think there can be in a 5x8 bathroom? Well, I've done it enough times to know that something different can happen every time. It could be steel mesh in the plaster that you didn't expect to see. Or one time the sewer main was clogged because there was hard water and the homeowner didn't know. They never even lived there. Another time the vanity gets damaged in delivery. We've got to come back later to finish that. Or another time we had a dumpster guy that we would use for demo. Used them a bunch of times. But this time the dumpster didn't come off the truck. It got hung up and the guy needed to drive back to the shop and get it off with an angle grinder. In big construction, we refer to these surprises with a contingency. So it's a tough pill to swallow, but if you haven't literally done what you're setting out to do, the contingency might be double or triple the cost of what you initially expect. And the more times that you do that, you can reduce that contingency. Do something 3, 4, 5 times, maybe the contingency only is 10, 20%. But that brings us to rule number 3, which is the price always gets paid in full. And there's a few ways to think about this. The more formal way is the iron triangle: scope, schedule, budget. You pick 2, the market picks the third. You may hear people refer to that as good, fast, and cheap. You pick 2, the market picks the third, and you can kind of play around with those variables in your head to see how it can make sense. But one way that shows up in the real world is that half of contractors go out of business within just a few years. So if you get 3 bids for a job, at least one of those guys is going to be out of business if you try to call them back in a few years. The construction industry is very much feast or famine. And the people that do this for a living eventually learn what it costs to stay in business, and they can't charge below that price. And the people that do charge below that price ultimately end up making you pay for the rest of that bill. Now, when you set out on whatever you're trying to do with your home, it's important you follow rule number 4, which is start with the end in mind. Eventually, you're going to have to choose the color of the grout and the light fixtures that you want. You might as well do it as soon as possible. In big construction, we call this pre-construction. And unfortunately, most homeowners and the contractors that they deal with don't have any pre-construction budget at all. The biggest projects rely on architects and interior designers and engineers to do all of this planning in the beginning. And when you skip those steps and you delay those decisions, they just manifest as problems in your projects. Now, when you start with the end in mind, you probably have expectations for quality. But I want you to understand, rule number 5, quality is a proxy for time. And there's a lot of ways to think about this. You know, I'm big into the outdoors. I'm in my camper van right now. I got a map of the national parks behind me. So I'll give an analogy with trees. And you'll see pine trees. They grow up really tall, really fast. But the wood is soft and they burn fast. While the oak trees take much longer to grow. But the wood is hard and it burns a lot longer. And the difference is the time. And so you'll see this in whatever you're asking your contractor to do. If you want exceptional results, you better have an exceptional amount of time to do it yourself or an exceptional amount of money. And people will often try to figure out how to speed this process up since there's so much time involved. But I want you to understand that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. If you watch a professional work, you'll probably be surprised at how slow they move, how clean they are, how much time they spend preparing an area and putting away their tools. They've learned what it takes to survive in this business. Now, that's part of what perfect segue into rule number 7, which is not every customer is your customer. And if you're a homeowner, not every project is your project. You need to understand there's a dozen professions that work on your house, probably more. There's a profession that does just painting, just flooring, just finished carpentry, just roofing and plumbing and electrical and driveways and landscaping. And they all have to go through their own surprises. They all have to go through the process of figuring out that something is not easy. It's always simple, but it's never easy. Now, when you accept that and you realize that you have to delegate things, you're going to fall into another trap, which is rule number 8. And that's no job is too difficult for the guy who doesn't have to do it. So don't forget that until you literally do a thing, you really don't know what it's like. And humans by nature inherently overestimate what they're capable of. You hear the Bill Gates quote. It's like most people overestimate what they can do in a year, but underestimate what they can do in 10. Contractors don't have the luxury of waiting 10 years to figure out what they're capable of. So you have to pay for today's results. And believe me, contractors, unlike people who work in many other salary jobs, often work for free because they make mistakes, they learn lessons, and they have to take these surprises on the chin. And the biggest surprises of all have to do with your health. So last but not least, safety first. This is a very serious business. The people that do this professionally end up getting new rotator cuffs and hips and knees, and they can't replace their lungs, but they're certainly damaging it around concrete dust and cement. You know, I got a buddy who took an angle grinder blade to the face when it broke off. People that lose fingers are so common. Don't get up on a roof if you're even have a slight hesitancy to do it. It's not worth it if you fall off. Now, I could talk for 5 more minutes about this, but seriously, safety first. It's not worth it. If you're keeping track at home, you might have noticed that I said I was going to give you 10 rules and I only gave you 9, and that's because rule number 10 is quit while you're ahead. When you get into your projects, you're going to see all these little things that you could tinker with. Well, you know what? People might say good is the enemy of great, but in construction, perfect is the enemy of done.